Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Today, I am here partnered with AMSOIL to help you better market yourself and drive more value for your sponsors. And that applies regardless of what type of discipline you're in the motorsports industry. It could be ATV, UTV, sprint cars, NASCAR, NHRA, dirt bike, whatever. The intent is that you can learn these things. You can apply what you learn in this show to improve your sponsorship program. Now, before we get into this episode, I have to tell you a little bit about AMSOIL. And this is a really fun story. I've shared it on this show before, but it's just really cool. Back in the 1960s, there was a jet fighter pilot named AMSOIL. Now, he asked himself this question: why don't we use synthetic oil in car engines? So, as a jet fighter pilot, he was very used to seeing synthetics applied in these massive jet engines that have absolutely extreme stress when they're in supersonic flight. So it needed this crazy oil. But why don't we do the same for our cars? I mean, we love our cars. Why don't we take care of our cars? That was the question that he was asking. And he couldn't find it. He couldn't find a solution out there, so he decided, I'm just going to create the solution. So back in the 60s in Superior, Wisconsin, he started a company called AMSOIL, and then in 1972, he released the first synthetic motor oil for automobiles. And now, I mean, we're used to seeing synthetics everywhere, but AMSOIL has remained as one of the industry leaders. And why is that? Because they keep on innovating. They have rigorous testing. They show you the inside, the details about the testing. They stand behind their products. And that is why AMSOIL has continued to dominate the industry. And I'm excited to partner with them too, because they are very, very dedicated to making motorsports as good as it possibly could be. That's why they sponsored the show. They are here to help make motorsports better, and they're partnering with you, and they're partnering with me to make sure that we have the tools to do that. So all of this, everything, and even honestly this little segment started with a fighter pilot from Wisconsin. Pretty amazing. What I want you to do is go check out AMSOIL today. Find out what they do that makes them great. Go to AMSOIL.com/rider. That's AMSOIL.com/rider. Now, our featured guest today is David McKinney. He is the creative marketing manager for 509. And one thing I want to tell folks about that we didn't really get the chance to talk to in the show is about the 509 Volume 13 movie premiere party. That is coming up on Saturday, August 18th at the Northern Quest Resort and Casino in Airway Heights, Washington. Now, when this podcast releases, it's actually going to be July 17th of 2018. And the teaser video is already going to be out there, so you want to check that out. But it's even better if you can get to the party. If you can't make it to the August 18th party, you can go ahead and go to the Canterbury Park Expo Center in Minnesota on Saturday, September 15th. There's another premiere party at that time. So check it out. Now, before I get into the episode, there's a few other things I want to cover. I would love to get your feedback, so head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. That is one of the ways that we can drive more exposure for the show, which then allows us to continue to bring on amazing guests. And one thing I'll just tell you, we have been having some problems with Google Play Music, so if you're listening to this on Google Play Music, we fixed them. But so far, the last couple of episodes, we've not been able to release to Google Play, so we're working on that too. But head over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. That'd be great. Whatever podcast player you use, even if it's Google Play, go ahead and subscribe. That's the best way to ensure that you don't miss upcoming shows. Now, next up, we actually have RJ Anderson coming on. I have been following RJ for a long time, and ever since then, I've been trying to get him on this show, and I finally succeeded, and he was a phenomenal guest. So make sure you catch that next one. And then if you missed our last episode, we had the Mad Dog Lauren Morrell on the show, and he gave us a ton of good information. Now, this episode here was brought to you by 5 awesome companies. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology. And they are running a giveaway for a trip to Vegas to Reno in 2018. I'm going to be there as well. SolderWeld's going to be there. You're going to want to be there. So I need you to listen to the commercial in this episode. And after that, I need you to go check out the SolderWeld page so you can figure out how to enter into this giveaway. Now, TopThePodium.com is also sponsoring the show. They are experts in motorsport sponsorship. Bold Racing Suspension, they're a family race team and custom suspension experts. Armor Coat, they simplify your cleaning process. And then Crash Addict Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to give a shout out to some of our other partners, including MBRP Powersports, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, GSP XCV Axles, and One Stop Performance. Now, the structure of this podcast is set up like a race. We will begin with the basic intro, and then in Heat 1, we'll dive into David's background. In Heat 2, we'll discuss some sponsorship tactics and strategies. In the main event, we'll discuss mindset, and then we'll end at the finish line. We're going to get a few of closing comments and contact information for David. Without further ado, let's hop in. David, I'm going to stop even trying to introduce you, and I want you to take a moment, fill in the gaps, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, you nailed it. I am over at 509 now. We're over in Spokane, Washington. I'm the creative marketing manager. It's kind of a loaded position right now. Right now, everything from athlete management, which includes sponsorships, to shooting the films. Myself and Mike Reeve, who's up in Canada, helps produce the volume of films that we put out every single year. And I do all the editing, sound design, post-production, everything pretty much to make the film what it is, as well as dealing with all of our athletes one-on-one. So within all of that comes social media roles, so Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, keeping up with all the fans. It's a little bit of everything, but it's an awesome gig.
I'm shocked to hear that you actually do the editing for some of the videos. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm not really, I don't consider myself an editor. I enjoy it. You usually shoot things in a mindset of how you want to edit it, so that's kind of what I do enjoy, because it's tough to just hand your stuff over to somebody and then paint this visual for them, and they have to create it on their own. You got to kind of be over their shoulder the whole time, so it's tough. I enjoy editing, but it's not my, I wouldn't say it's my strongest point, but I've learned a lot over the years. I mean, you have to. You're making a feature film in the sled industry. So it's great, though. It's fun to watch the progression of whether it's even just YouTube videos behind the lens or the films as the year goes on. You see your progression. And I critique myself a lot more than I should. I kind of beat myself up over some of the stuff. But I keep telling myself if I'm not doing that, then I know I'm not progressing in it. So
yeah. Well, that's a good mindset to have. I've accidentally gotten rid of a lot of my fans on the show by bringing up Tom Brady references, but that's how that guy thinks. He's all here. I'll switch it up. Michael Jordan. Everybody loves Michael Jordan. That's how Michael Jordan thinks too. I actually just read a book on how Michael Jordan thinks, and he's just like that. Like, he constantly was beating himself up over every little thing that he did wrong, like that, and that's how he ended up being the best.
Right, which is good as long as you don't overdo it to the point of where you're sitting there hemming and hawing about every decision. But
yes,
it's
as long as you don't hate yourself
on something. Exactly.
Right.
So you gotta accept that you screwed up here and there, and then move on from it.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, 509 does a pretty good job. So I should say you do a pretty good job at putting together the videos, because there's some awesome stuff out there. Now, I'm behind, though, on my ownership of the 509 content. I always watch it, but I own the volume 10, which is Turkey Reinhardt was on there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure how many years ago that was now. Maybe four years ago? Or
13 is coming out this August.
Oh, I'm not that bad then. That's only a couple years behind.
Well, a year in luck, I know a guy that can help you out on getting these films.
Nice. I actually, after I watched that one, because my kids like watching these too, and not that I don't force them to do it, of course. But no, I was watching it earlier this year, the volume 10, and right after that I messaged Turkey Reinhardt. I was like, man, you got to come on the show, and we're close. He might actually do it. He said like he's interested, and I've gotten that far. But I
can give him a little push, I think. Yeah, he's a character. he's fully committed to that role whenever you go out and film it. It's funny because the whole point is to be as unprofessional as possible, which is nice. Right. It's kind of you unwind. It's usually in the springtime when we're done filming, the heavy hitter A-grade footage, and the goal is like home video style, shaky, handheld, zoom in from 300 yards away and not use a tripod. It's just humorous and it's fun, and he loves the role. It's a good time to unwind and reflect on the season and just not worry about what anybody thinks, and he has proved that he does not worry.
Right. No, that's good stuff though. Well, I want to dive in a little bit more into your background, though. That was a good intro, and you allowed me to take us into the, my kids' life and how they like watching the 509 films too. But let's go deeper into you. I want to know your story. I want to know how you first got into motorsports, and I want to know your path and your journey to where you're at today.
Oh boy, how far back we want to go? Like the first time I sat on a snowmobile?
I love people saying like I was 6 months old, and that's when I started riding a snowmobile. I mean, let's go way back.
It's close, actually. So I'm originally from northern Minnesota. I'm from a little town called Kote, which is about 15 miles west of Duluth.
Okay.
And my parents had sleds growing up, and we grew up on about 15 acres, and my dad had an old, what was it, a 96 Puma 340 Hardcat.
Oh, yeah. Pumas.
And I was too young to ride that, so he got me a Kitty Cat, like a 1993 Kitty Cat. And I rode that thing, actually funny looking back at it now, the first year I was scared of it. I wouldn't even sit on it, and just think of where it's gone now.
That's funny.
So I rode that for a year, and then it just kind of progressed from there. My dad didn't tell my mom, bought me a Z120 and put it in the back of his Jeep for Christmas, and she was not thrilled, but now looking back on it, she thanks him for it because it brought me to my career.
Yeah.
From there, I was just obsessed with sleds my whole life. I lived off the Sled Next films. I was watching them in school and trying to, get past the proxies on the school computers to go to YouTube and watch videos. And it was kind of an unrealistic thing. Everybody joked and said, "What are you really going to do for a career? What are you really going to do?" I'm in small town northern Minnesota. It's not really something that you hear often. People going west and meeting with these athletes and making a career out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of stuck to my guns, and I was a skateboarder for a long time growing up, and that's kind of where the film side came in. My buddies and I would always do a lot of still imagery and filming little crappy skateboard edits, and so I took an interest in film around 12 or so, and followed through with that all the way through high school, and I went to school in Minneapolis for a degree in production and cinematography, actually.
Okay.
And that's kind of where everything started becoming a little more realistic, thinking, hey, you could maybe make this happen. Maybe this isn't really so far off. And then I internshipped with, the show Sledhead 24/7?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rodney, he was working with the snowcross circuit with ISOC at the time, and I was doing some stuff on the side with them. And he kept bugging me. He's like, "When are you going to come work for me? When are you going to come work for me?" And I was kind of humbled, That was my first real sign of anybody wanting my skill set.
Yeah.
And so I gave him a call, and he's like, "Yeah, I want you to come, maybe do an internship and come work with me." And so I met up with him, and then David Fisher and Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher's the host, and his son works with the show as well and does a lot of test riding. And I went out to West Yellowstone, and I can't remember what year it was now, and there's an event called Snowshoot there, where all the magazines and the media get to ride the new sleds before they're released to the consumers, so that when they are released, they have content to post on their magazines or websites.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my internship. It was like, it was nerve-wracking, because it's like, this is their one shot. They have 4 days to capture all these sleds, and then that's your only shot at it, because they can't come back. These guys pack up and leave, and the OEMs all head out. So I was kind of shooting B-cam with them, and believe it or not, one night at a bar there in West Yellowstone, after we all had a few too many drinks in us.
Yeah.
And I bumped into Stephen Clark, who had been shooting freelance with 509 and been filming with them and doing stills. And he invited me. He's like, "Hey, McKinney, I appreciate I've been seeing some of the work you've been doing via social media." I was really heavy on there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'd like you to come out and check out our heli shoot sometime out in Canada. And that was like, this was all happening pretty fast. That was like the bee's knees of the sledding world, was to go to the 509 heli shoot. And I was like, yeah, but it's funny because like I said, we had a couple drinks with me, so I was a little nervous. I'm like, this is probably not the best way to introduce myself. I was panicking. I hope I didn't say the right thing. And sure enough, I did, and went out with Steven, and Steven ended up taking a job with Climb a few years later, and Tom called me up, who is the owner, or sorry, not owner anymore, CEO of 509.
Yep.
He called me, and basically my interview was to do the film, Volume 11.
Oh, okay.
Because Steven had left at a kind of unfortunate time. It was just about winter, so it was kind of panic mode to find a filmer.
Yeah.
And he recommended me, and I packed up from Minnesota and moved out to Dave McClure's basement in Swan Valley, Idaho, and lived there for 3 months and shot Volume 11. And that's a whirlwind. But then Tom offered me a position, and here I am.
Well, that's a cool story. I always love hearing the way these connections are made, and it's just, you got to put yourself in the right spot at the right time. I mean, when you're out at an event like that, go hang out with the people afterwards, whether it's a bar or whether it's, I don't know, wherever else. I know that's the only place I know people hang out afterwards, but wherever people go there.
Right.
And you never know what's going to happen. And I love that was your interview, right? Was a real project. Like, a lot of times people complain about interviews because you don't really know how well someone's going to perform. Well, you can tell that time, like, you just make it. Just do it.
Right.
So that's good.
Yeah, I haven't laid that timeline out in a long time. I kind of tripped down memory lane there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really cool. Well, what about today? So, that was kind of how you got to your current state, but what about today? What are you really excited about right now?
Within the brand, I'm just pretty stoked for the company as a whole, 509. We've really been growing the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I kind of jumped on board right when things were really taking off. There's a lot of cool things going on behind the scenes. We're really working on jumping into this off-road market. So that's been different. You got a few months in the summer now to try and get your mindset out of winter. Even though working in the snow industry, winter never truly ends.
Yeah.
It's kind of 12 months of snow. But this off-road thing's been fun because it's presented a lot of neat locations to shoot. I went down last summer and shot in Arizona and in the mountains in northern Arizona, and then to Glamis out to the sand dunes. And something that's just, polar opposite from what I'm used to. I'm used to 20 degrees with, below zero wind chills filming snowmobiles, and here I am 3 months later, 100 degrees in the desert. And it was neat. It was just, it was different. But yeah, I'm just stoked in the brand as a whole. It's just everybody's meshing really well together. It's just been a pretty good year at 509, and there's just a lot of growth happening, and everybody's pretty upbeat about it and stoked to see what's ahead for us. So that's kind of a broad answer, but I just look forward to going to work every day right now because there's so many new things happening.
Yeah, you can't ask for much more than that, feeling good about going to work every day.
You're right.
One thing I'll say about the off-road industry with the introduction of the side-by-sides, in the mid-2000s, and then that taking off with really the Razor and where it's at today, it's brought some serious attention to the sport. I know I was able to get people into the sport that would never really participate in the past just because I have a Razor now. It's a 4-seater, so like this past weekend, strapped the car seats in. I got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and then my father-in-law. We went and we put on 130 miles just tooling around. And I wouldn't have been able to do that in the past, especially not with my father-in-law. Like he just wouldn't do it. So now I've given him access to a whole new sport, and I think that's pretty cool.
No, I 100% agree with that. I actually have a 4-seater Razor myself, and my parents came out about a month ago now, and my mother's never been able to really see the views I'm fortunate to see pretty much every day, and like, this is really the only tool that without beating the crap out of your truck that you can go up these logging roads, and I was able to packed the whole family in the Razor, and we went up and had lunch up on the mountain, and she was able to see some of these awesome views, and it was months ago now, so there's still some snow up on the peaks, and it was cool. There's no other sport where you're able to do that with such a broad group of people.
Definitely. And I also think that from a gear standpoint, it's the right time for companies to start hopping in, because I think there's a lot of carryover where people are trying to wear their dirt bike stuff with the side-by-sides, and it's maybe a little bit overkill at times, where people are trying to wear just street gear and they're not protected well enough, or it doesn't ventilate well enough, or there's not enough dust protection, or whatever it is. So it's a good time for companies to start making that transition too, I think, to help the gear for, both dirt bike and ATV, but also I think the side-by-side industry, there's some customizations that could be done there.
Yeah, the side-by-side industry has been a really interesting one, because people don't really want to wear helmets.
Yeah.
Historically, it's kind of been a lot of people going out on the weekends and just, enjoying the wind in their hair and drinking a beer, to be honest.
Right.
It's tough to make guys wear helmets. So we came out with like a product called the Dust Devil, for example. It's kind of a crossover bandana, like a shortened ball club for snowmobiling, and it was something minor, but like people love it because you don't have to wear a helmet. It's not that we're ever promoting not wearing a helmet, but we are aware that there are people that do not.
Right.
And that's been the biggest battle. So like that Dust Devil, it's a cool product. It works, and people are stoked on it because they can still, wear their goggles and have the wind in their hair, but they're not eating dust all day.
Right. But I'll tell you what, that is the problem.
The difficult part is trying to find something that's new that your everyday consumer is actually truly interested in.
Definitely. Well, and I tell you what, the dust thing, it's huge too. That's one of the things with my kids. Like, I know how to shut my mouth, and like I know how to wipe my eyes where I don't get the dust in it. But I tell you what, looking over at my kids, I was like, goodness, you kids are filthy.
Right.
I need to do something better with you two. But luckily, we stayed at a lake house this weekend. We could just all go and dunk ourselves in a lake after a ride. But yeah, that's good stuff though. I think we're probably going to end up talking a little bit more about that stuff in a little bit, but I definitely want to dive into one of your elements of your job, which is, the sponsorship piece. But right before that, I want to stop and take a minute to thank the sponsors for this podcast. I am going to give you access to a giveaway put on by SolderWeld, which is going to allow you to go with one other person for free to the 2018 Vegas to Reno race. That's the longest off-road desert race in America. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be podcasting there. It's a cool place. You need to be there too. All right? This is what you need to do. Go out and buy some SolderWeld hot block heat absorption putty. Buy it. Then take a picture of you with that putty. Then take that picture, post it online to Facebook or Instagram with the hashtag. So this can be hashtag HotBlock4Vets. That's HOTBLOCK 4 VETS. HotBlock4, the number 4 Vets. And that's it. Now, when this show releases, it's July 17th of 2018. You have until the end of July to enter this contest. So I highly encourage you to do it. Worst case scenario, you get a fantastic product in SolderWeld's Hot Block Putty. Check it out. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance, and that's why I'm going to talk to you next about Bold Racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually, rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important, if you're ready for that next level of performance, to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com. I am constantly asking the guests of this podcast how they attract and retain sponsors. And on almost every single occasion, somebody gives an example of a resume. A rider or a racer resume is extremely important to your overall sponsorship pitch and proposal. And it's tough to do. I mean, it's not really the easiest thing. Anybody can go through and put together a resume, so don't get me wrong there, but it's really difficult to get something that's like unique and different and stands out, and that also is something that can be put across multiple platforms. Well, that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about next, is how topthepodium.com can actually help you build a race or rider resume that can be used on multiple platforms. I'm talking like website, PDF, something you can print off that's interactive, that looks fantastic. It looks absolutely professional. Well, that's because it's made by a professional. This is the type of thing that's going to set you apart from the crowd, and that's going to position you for a strong sponsorship proposal. So what I want you to do next is go to topthepodium.com, and if you have a question, there's a little chat icon that pops up on the side of the screen when you go to topthepodium.com, and you can go ahead and type your question right there. Jeff Vanestal, he is the owner of Top the Podium. He's going to be able to respond to you directly, so check it out. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. I don't know about you, but I absolutely can't stand cleaning the mud, filth, grime, goo, garbage off my machines after I go for a ride. It's just frustrating. It takes a lot of time. That's why I'm going to talk to you about Armor Kote next. Armor Kote is designed to help prevent mud, clay, ice, and other grime from sticking to your machine. It makes the cleanup quick and easy. It makes the machine actually look fantastic, and beyond that, it smells phenomenal. I don't know how to describe it, like bubble gum or something like that. It smells great. If you want to know more about Armor Kote, visit armorcoatproducts.com, and you will see their entire product line, all the offerings. Armor Kote is also working on some new stuff. They're soon going to release a solution made for coating the helmet and visor, and also one for wheels to help prevent mud buildup for high temp areas. So make your move now. Go to armorcoatproducts.com. Make a decision that's going to allow you to shorten the amount of time that you spend cleaning so that you can increase the amount of time that you spend riding and racing. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now in Heat 2, and that's where we really get into the meat of the podcast. That's where we talk about sponsorship tactics and strategies. And David is here from 509. He's actually responsible for this stuff there. So we're really going to get some insights into what he actually looks for, and hopefully we can get some good tips out of this thing too. But, the first thing, we're just going to dive right into the meat. And I want to know from your aspect, from your perspective, what are you actually looking for in a brand ambassador?
The first thing that jumps out at me with 509, our tagline is fueling your passion. I am really committed in finding people that truly believe in the product first and foremost. You can hook somebody up; they can be the best rider in the world, but if they don't truly believe in the product, it's really not worth it at all. I know a lot of times money talks, whatever it may be, but at the end of the day, you want this guy to be proud to be sponsored by this brand. You want him to go around and truly tell his friends, hey, you should check this out. You should go, you should get your family in this gear. I really believe in it. That's honestly my number one thing right now. And we're at this state of social media now where you can kind of see through who truly believes in it and who's, kind of just faking it to make it. But my number one thing is, I'd want somebody to believe in the brand who they're reaching after before they even try to get a sponsorship with them.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the things that are obviously fake. I mean, we've all seen them. I think people in their head right now, like if they saw a legitimate post from someone who truly believes in a product and compared it to one that was completely fake or it seemed forced, we could probably tell that, but I don't know if I know how to define it. Like, can you give an example, or can you think of a way to say, like, yep, if you do that looks fake, I can tell, or if you do this, yes, that looks truly, I don't know, what you believe in.
Right. Well, I shouldn't even say directly from social media. It's a little bit of behind the scenes as well. Like our outerwear team, for example, we've really refined it. It's a bunch of A-grade guys that just love the brand. And just their communication, even with myself and our design team on products, they're giving me random calls on a Sunday if they had a ride and something happened and they don't want to forget about it, when they get in the office Monday. They'll give me a call right away and report back on how that product performed. And like just going that extra mile and then backing it up on social media with a post, I know that they truly are, this is their honest opinion on it, because like they just gave me a call 24 hours ago, fill me in on what happened, if it was good or bad, but they still know it was good, that's awesome, they're promoting it. If it was bad, it's awesome, they're getting back to us, and we're making necessary changes for, once it hits once it hits the consumer, that these issues are going to be, taken care of. So it's kind of like behind the scenes mixes with what the actual viewer sees on social media. You gotta know where to. It's a tough area to really. It's kind of a gray area, but I mean, it's a little bit of both.
I like what you just said about providing your feedback, and that shows the true passion. That even goes back to when you first started talking about editing and how you critique yourself and you constantly want to make yourself better. I mean, that's part of what these sponsored riders are supposed to be doing with your product too, is critiquing the things that didn't really work out that great, giving that feedback so that the next generation of the product can be that much better.
Right. And then to kind of hit on the fake side, I don't really, you don't ever want to point fingers, but I've occasionally received messages of just a bunch of photos and people are looking for a repost or whatever it may be, and there's nothing else on the message. It's just, hey, check this out, or hey, can you repost these, or can you put a template on this? And there's nothing else along with that. There's nothing about, how have things been going? I'm stoked on this product. I'm stoked on that product. It's just kind of, it's more, I get a strange vibe. It's more for the fame or for the following or for the reach, which a lot of time it's not. It's just, some people just don't think about that, and they honestly are invested in the brand. It's just, you got to kind of, be able to read them too if they're just quiet and that's just their personality. But you can tell who's genuine and who's just kind of in it for, hopefully making their name a little bigger.
And I want to expand on that point some, because unfortunately, well, maybe it's not unfortunate. I'm going to say it this way. There's a lot of people out there that need help with this kind of stuff. That's why the show exists. But one of the things that I know I get approached on through my social media for this podcast, and I know you get it, and other guests have been in the show get it too, is, people reach out with some very vague, whether it's a post or a question in a direct message, and you don't know what to do with it. Like, you don't know what the intent is. You're not sure if they're just being kind of scammy or if they're, just in it for the fame or whatever it is. And I just really encourage people, if you're going to put a direct message out to somebody about sponsorship or whatever it is, just be clear in what you're actually trying to accomplish with that message. Because I know I got one a couple days ago, and it was, I don't know if they wanted me to repost it or what, but it was just it was like some video. Yeah, check this out. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, I don't really know.
Now what?
Yeah, now what? What do you want me to do with this? And I was like, I shouldn't have even clicked on this. I just wasted 20, 30 seconds of my life. And that's the same stuff that, like, in your case, you're going through that same mental process. You are a human being, and you're sitting behind a phone or a computer making these decisions. Like, people need to make it easier for you.
If we want to talk about some of the bad applications I receive, I could be on the phone with you for the next 24 hours. I love this industry. I love this community of sledders, but, man, there is some interesting sponsorship applications I receive. Every single time I read them, I just kind of, you sit back and go, okay, I understand. This means something to this person still. No matter how bad it is, this in one way or another means something to them, and they, at a bare minimum, went to enough effort to find the contact and send it. So I always have to try and take a deep breath and read it no matter what. But yeah, there's some interesting ones.
Well, I think we could talk about that. I mean, I did want to bring it up a little bit later, but since we're already on the topic, I would love to talk about some of the bad proposals that you have seen, and the intent for going through these is so that people, if they hear it, and they won't do that. They'll learn from it before they ever make the mistake. That's one of the reasons why this show exists. You can learn from things before you ever make the mistake. Other people already made the mistake for you. You don't have to do it. So
Right.
Let's go through maybe one or two examples that you might have, and I might throw in a couple that I've been getting recently. As the show has grown a little bit more, I've been getting some really weird messages from people. So let's go ahead and, if you can start off with one or two examples, maybe I'll chime in.
Boy, I think one of my favorite, there's kind of some reoccurring ones, and a lot of them are, hey, I get the young kids really want, they haven't really mastered the social media side yet, and they don't really know the ins and outs, so I come a little slack, but I get the, hey, I'm 14, and my dad works at a dealership, and he's a good rider, can you hook me up with a sponsorship? Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of, what? But you gotta come slack because they're young, and then, or I'll get where people will name drop our athletes, like so and so knows my name, and then you'll mention it to this athlete. I'll go, no, I've never met this person in my life, and it's like, well, it's like if the kid knows that he's just making it up, and I have direct contact with these guys, why would you dig yourself that hole already? But then you get the straight up ones where they're just asking for stuff. I'll get guys that are asked, does your sponsorship come with a free sled? Is it, what's the base pay? Like, it just comes down to like dollar signs and product for a lot of people. And I get stuff like that probably at least once a week, if not twice. And it's just lack of effort, and it's kind of a bummer to see some people that are kind of materialistic. It's just how the world is, but yeah, it's amusing. I'm kind and I reply to them and whatever, but it happens. And I hope that my reply will not shy them away, that they'll become more motivated to maybe try again in a couple of years when they build their name or their brand, whatever they are. I hope that it doesn't just make them go, oh, that guy's kind of an a-hole. I hope they go, that's a good point. I'll come back, I'll try again next year. I'll build myself as a person, as a name, as a brand, and I'll give it another go. And that's cool, because I do see people come back, and sometimes there's a couple of guys I can think of it has taken 2-3 years, and we have actually accepted sponsorships from because they have gone above and beyond to better themselves and to push their own limits. And that's awesome to see, but then, there's still the stuff in the mix that you just got to chuckle at.
Yeah. I love the examples there, and I also really like how you're saying that it means something to them. They took the time to find the contact information or find the application and actually do it. They took that time, so it does mean something to them. So it's worth a response. I definitely appreciate that. I also really appreciate that some people who, you said, hey, no, this isn't the right thing, they come back at a later date and it works out. And I think that's pretty awesome. It should be reassuring for folks to say, because if you're listening to this show right now and you've made a mistake before, that's okay. You have another chance. You can just learn from it.
Number one thing, don't start off by just asking for stuff.
Yeah.
That will save you so much in the long run. And yeah, that will just instantly make a better impression for whomever you're speaking to.
Right. I actually I think we just talked about this on a recent show with Joey Sylvester. I think he was the one that brought it up. Joey Sylvester is a dirt track racer, and we talked about attracting versus hunting sponsors. And basically what he was saying is he doesn't ask anymore. He's gotten to the point where he just does the things that he thinks is the right things to do, and then people reach out to him.
I was going to hit on that. That's kind of where we've been at least for our heavy hitters. I keep pretty good tabs on all of our guys. I have a list. I just printed it off now. I keep it on my wall. I glance at throughout the day, and I'll kind of go through about 20 to 30 guys that we kind of have in the spotlight. And you make sure they're all, nobody's cussing up a storm and nobody's hating on the brand or whatever. And then through there, I'll just find new riders, or there'll be for example, I have a list of about 10 people that we do not sponsor, but they're in my line of sight here, and I'll check up on them, once a week or whatever, and see what they're doing, see how they're progressing, see how they're promoting their current brands. Their stories, Instagram stories, are big into everybody's personal life, because people will get on Instagram stories late at night and whatever after a few too many drinks, or you'll kind of see a little more into their personal life than on their day-to-day posts. And so there's a lot of people that I keep tabs on in hopes of going after here in the next year or whatever it may be. And yeah, it's honestly easier that way. You don't have to weed through so many iffy applications. We know what we're looking for. We know what we want in a rider and personality. So it's fun chasing these guys via social media, if you will.
Yeah, I love that. And the truth of it is, for the show too, I mean, this show has had some success in being sponsored, and when by the time this airs, I'm not sure what number this episode is going to be. Maybe it's going to be in the lower 90s. And you can't have a show last without some sort of financial backing. And so, but I think every single one of my sponsors, I've not pitched anything really. They've reached out to me and said, hey, we like what you're doing. We would love to be part of it, and we've built on it from there. And even honestly, I think one of my first episodes, 5 or 6, is when Jeff Vanistal of Top the Podium, he reached out to me and said, like, hey, I want to actually sponsor your show. I was like, oh,
that's awesome.
Yeah, but that's I think that's where the industry is shifting towards. I think the application process is getting harder and harder and harder, and it's more like the attraction process is becoming where it's at. I mean, that's
it is, and once again, that comes back to how big of a role social media plays. You can keep your eye on somebody so easily without them ever having to send you an email. You can see everything. You can see their post schedule, how often they post, how often they're out riding, how often they reply to their messages, whatever it may be. It's like it's almost scary. But you can follow somebody who you've never met, you've never dealt with, and you can really kind of feel them out before reaching out to them. So, yeah, the applications are still awesome, and it's kind of, I don't want to say old school anymore. It's great. It's cool when somebody sends you a full PDF with whether it's race results, whatever, and their history, how they got into sledding. That's awesome. But you dig into their social media feed, and you can learn almost more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I want to actually share something that I've encountered somewhat recently from the bad proposal side, just kind of building off that. I think in the past 1 to 2 weeks, so for people listening, we're recording on July 6th of 2018. So in the past couple of weeks, I've had a number of people reach out to me that I've never seen their names before, they just reached out, I think on my Facebook page and under the Messenger, which is great. I really encourage people to do that. But I think in all 2 or 3 of them that I've seen just in the past week or two, it's been, how fast can I get sponsored? Or like, I have a race next weekend, I need to get sponsored. And my reply in almost all the cases, I mean, I'm not an expert at this stuff, but I just basically say, it's not about speed. Like, it's not about this immediate gratification. I said it's about hard work and networking. So
Right.
that's not going to happen in a week. Or I said, I told one of the person, I said, I don't know of a real fast way. I said, I can, if you don't want anything substantial that's going to be meaningful and that's going to last, then maybe there's something out there. But that's not the kind of people that I talk to on this show, and that's not the riders and racers that come on here. That's not how they approach their sponsorship. So I don't know if I can help folks if they want a really fast sponsorship.
Right. I don't think there's any such thing, to be honest.
Right. And that's what I told the person. But it's I'm glad that they reach out and ask those questions, because I want them to ask me versus going and trying to do something and it not being as successful. But that just shows me that there's still a lot more out there that we can do with this show to teach people, and there's a lot more that the industry can do to grow.
So Dizzle kind of hit on something like that a few weeks ago. I can't remember his exact number, but he always believed in meeting somebody or bumping into them 8 times or so, 8 to 10 times before you ever ask anything of them.
Yep.
Which I know now, especially a brand like 509, it's a little difficult. It's a big brand, and me personally, it's hard to bump into. But even just events, I bump into guys at events that come up to me at snow shows, heydays, whatever it may be, and give me a printout of a poster, kind of their sponsorship resume. But they come up and shake my hand and put a face to the name, actually. And sometimes nothing happens, but either way, they went the extra mile rather than just, sending me an email asking for something. It's cool to see them taking the time of their day to go to this event, know exactly who they're looking for, know what brand they want to be associated with, finding me, introducing themselves. Like, it takes a lot of courage. It's got to be nerve-wracking. I mean, I get nervous talking to certain people in the industry, so it's hats off to them. And just doing that, I mean, it may sound minor, but I personally take it for what it is. It goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a very good point. By chance, would you have ever gone to the Novi, Michigan snow show?
I haven't yet. I've been wanting to.
That's one I go to every year, and I did talk last year to somebody at 509, but I can't remember their name. Oh, buddy. But either way,
Frank?
I don't know. I really, honestly do not know. I'm pretty sure I have their cards stuffed away somewhere.
I can't keep track of who's at what shows. Those guys are road warriors. Hats off to them.
Oh, yeah. Especially after they're out there for days, or at least a solid day on their feet, like talking to everybody. It's a lot.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't do it.
But either way, I just figured I'd throw that in there because that is one that I go to. And last time I was there, I talked to a number of people, and it's pretty crazy how many connections you can make though at those types of shows. It's really incredible, and especially if you just go there like not even seeking to don't go to get anything, go there to make a connection, make a relationship.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I have kids that actually, I shouldn't say kids, I have guys that reach out to me via my personal social media rather than going through 509 and asking me questions, which is cool too because they know what I do there. And I almost enjoy that more. It's cool that they went out of their way to find me and actually message me rather than the brand, and kind of, it's almost like a pre-interview sometimes. Like, they ask me a couple questions, and then I'll see they send in an application after the fact, which is cool. They kind of associate me outside of the brand when they reach me on my personal social media account, and then they go back within the brand and send me basically the same message refined, which is cool to see that they kind of did their homework before actually sending some info in.
I like that. And I'm actually glad that you like it as well, because that's been something we've actually talked about it a little bit on the show with regards to LinkedIn, where people have, found maybe they search creative marketing manager, the title on LinkedIn, and then they find out, oh, David McKinney from 509, and then they reach out to them that way. And I've done that to get guests on the show before, where I've reached out to people and made the connection there. But I've always felt like, is it okay to do that? But I guess if it's not, people could always just say, hey, please don't message me on my personal page or whatever. But I haven't run into that yet. Everybody's been pretty comfortable, whether it's on Facebook or on Instagram or on LinkedIn. When I like, at least for me, when I've talked to folks that represent a company or a brand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Anytime you can go above and beyond, I think it's worth it. As long as you're doing it in a presentable way, there are some people that go above and beyond and continue to go above and beyond when the answer has clearly been a no. And then you kind of fall into being a little pushy, and then, you kind of make this brand a little standoffish but there's a fine line you got to bobble between without going too far into whether it's personal life or just too many emails and just kind of pestering. That's why I appreciate the guys, like I said, that I'll say something, we're tapped out on a sponsorship budget for this year, come back, next year, and then you truly don't really hear much from them. Maybe you see them at an event or whatever, but then they follow up within those 12 months with another email. That's cool to see it. They didn't push you. They didn't go, hey, you sure? You want to rethink this? They actually took the time to revamp their approach and follow through with it.
I like that. That's a pretty tangible tip, what you just gave there, too, is if a sponsor says, hey, we're tapped out on budget for this year, wait until next year. Don't... Or at least maybe figure out when the budgeting process takes place for next year. Maybe that's a good option too, but don't follow up right away. So if their budgeting cycle, if you reach out to them in February and they say we're tapped out, we can't sign anything else, but our budgeting process restarts in September, all right, reach back out in September. Or if they say, hey, not till next year, to January, February, then wait till January, February.
Right, good. Exactly.
Well, you know what? We talked a little bit already about social media, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. I want to understand, from your aspect, what are some of the things that are good? What are the things that people should be doing with their social media?
Social media is a loaded topic.
It is too. It changes so quick. We talked about this in the pre-interview a minute ago.
Right.
Like there's so many things that change from day to day. It's hard to even give good recommendations anymore.
It's as long as, like I said, I have my list of guys that I keep up on. I'm kind of speaking as if you're already sponsored by a brand and not really searching for a sponsor.
Yeah.
I can switch back and forth. Depends how you really want me to approach this.
No, that's fine that way. Yeah.
It's really, don't take the sponsor for granted is my number one thing when checking up on these guys, because you might have somebody who gets a sponsorship and they're super stoked for a month and then it kind of sizzles off. The stoke is over with, right? The initial, I got the sponsorship, adrenaline high has kind of wore off, and all of a sudden you see their social media on the decline or not as frequent. So I don't ever really want to bring it up to somebody. It's kind of a tough topic, but you just take note of it, and then you kind of give them a second chance. If you shoot them a message, maybe you shoot them a text, say, hey, how's this helmet working for you? It's kind of maybe a low-key reminder. And then, honestly, now, as far as actual content, the stories are so awesome. I love when our riders go out and ride, and they document their day via the story, just because it's so raw, and it's so much more personal. You feel like, here they are in the parking lot unloading from the sled deck, and it's great. It's cloudy and crappy down here, and now, you follow their adventure, get above the clouds, blue sky day. It's just awesome to see that from wherever you are. You're sitting at your office in Minnesota, right? And you're watching these guys have this awesome POW day, and it's just this kind of raw home video style. And we get more replies via direct message to stories than anything else. Somebody will reply to your story. I see that probably at least twice as often as just people messaging us, whether they're sending us photos or something interesting. One of our posts or something. Say we post a new helmet, and you get a comment, whatever, but you never really get people actually replying via direct message. You get those stories going that people are replying, this is awesome, this is great, or they're laughing or whatever. And that's cool to see. I think it's just so much more personal for everybody.
Yeah, I love the stories.
I kind of got off on a tangent there.
No,
but
that's perfect.
From the athlete side, it went from kind of, remembering who your sponsors are to then staying up on it, and then getting your personal life involved. I shouldn't say personal, more your athlete life involved on your social media, and just sticking with it, making sure you're consistent with it.
Yeah, I think the stories on Instagram really made that platform stand out from other ones. I mean, Facebook has the story option too, and Snapchat is obviously built around that piece, but I think that the stories really give people a lot of opportunities. But I love how you said this before, where you keep track of some of the stories, right? Just because it disappears within 24 hours doesn't mean you can put garbage on there. Like, people are still seeing that.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it seems to have the engagement on it is incredible. Like, people just messaging, replying to it, they're asking you something, like something minor. If it's Kote Borchers or something, taking a video of the truck as he's unloading his sled. There's a helmet there, and you'll get somebody saying, "Hey, what helmet is that?" And you don't really get that anywhere else, just because they know it's only there for 24 hours, so they don't ask the question now. They might not have the opportunity again. So I think they are a little more proactive to actually reach out, because they know, oh, this is going to be gone. If I don't send this now, he might never see what I'm replying to.
That's a good point. Because I would say I'm the same way. I get more messages from the stories, or actually I respond more to stories than any
you're
other thing.
You're part of the statistic.
I am. I'm part of it. I'm making that statistic a reality. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Well, outside of that piece, I actually I'm hopping around a little bit here, but we talked about the negative sides of proposals, and we talked a little bit about some of the good stuff, but can you remember or recall a really good sponsorship proposal, one that kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, without dropping any names, I had a guy message me on my personal Instagram, actually. He asked me for the contact for the 509 sponsorship application form. And so I told him it was me. I sent him the link, and he filled it all out, sent it to me, and I replied. It was a good application, nice imagery, all of his social media stats. That was a big thing too, actually. He was a good rider on top of it. That's really plays a big role. Of course, you're getting a sponsorship because you're talented. At the end of the day, people are interested in what you're doing on the sled. But he also broke down his posts for like the last 3 years. Like, it was really in depth. Well, that's just the beginning. And then he strategically sent it to me about 2 days before a certain snow show that I was at. And then he came up to the booth and followed up on it. And he thanked me for replying to it and put a face to the name, which I know a lot of people won't have that opportunity. He followed the snow show tour, realized that, hey, 509 is going to be at this one. And I think I actually made a personal post about packing up for, so-and-so snow show.
Yeah.
So he knew I was going. So he did all that. And then he found me there, introduced me, actually bought me a beer later that night. But he wasn't pushy, just super nice guy to talk to. And it worked out for him. I mean, he's a hell of a good rider and presented himself just overly well. But wasn't pushy and just laid everything out for us well. And he didn't even introduce himself he didn't just introduce himself to me. He introduced himself to everybody at the booth afterwards, just kind of told them who he was and said he was a slider chasing the dream, and made sure everybody who worked with 509 at that show knew their name, and he just carried on. But it was like, that's cool to see, man. Like, you're dedicated to this, you're committed. You didn't just send me an email and that was it. You went the extra mile to figure out, hey, these guys are at this event. I'm going to, send this email directly before. I know I got a reply now, so I know they're interested. Now I'm going to put a face to the name. So that's kind of an extreme example, but I mean, it was cool. It really stood out to me.
Well, it's, I guess for the right reason it's standing out, because that's awesome. Because it involved, I guess, 3 different things. One is like the prerequisite work. There was, I always hear people say other folks are lucky, but my definition of luck is when opportunity meets hard work. So in this case, this person did some work in following you and following 509. At least they did enough investigation to know where you're going to be at. Then pulled all of their social media stats for the past 3 years or whatever it was. Even if it's 3 months, that's awesome.
It was almost too much, but he laid it out so well that down to like graphs and everything, and it was cool. I actually still have it in my office because I sometimes look back at it because it's so well laid out.
See, that's good. And then they were there. They were at the event, so they were present, and then there was some follow-up afterwards. So, like, that's great. It's great to hear that, this person was able to go through that effort and have some success with it. And I love hearing examples where folks are strategic enough where they can do the work up front and then actually execute on it. That's awesome.
And then one minor thing I want to hit on is, I know when you're doing this, it's a big deal for whomever this is to be reaching out to this brand, and nerves can take over. But I was in that position where meeting these athletes, growing up in northern Minnesota, you just watch these films, and because you don't have that terrain, so you just sit there and watch these films over and over, and you idolize these guys and become celebrities in your eyes. And everybody that you encounter in this industry at the end of the day is just a normal human being. So when people come up to me and speak to me that way, like you're just another guy, or you're somebody you've known for 5 years, and they're relaxed and they're themselves. They're not trying to be somebody they're not. You just got to remember, hey, we can BS and still have a conversation, even if you're trying to reach out to this brand for a potential sponsorship. Just, relax and let's hang out and tell me something cool you did this week, or what you're doing to your sled, or whatever it is. Just a normal conversation goes a long way. Then sometimes being professional is great, but I really do appreciate when people are able to relax and kind of let their guard down a little and be who they truly are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because it is hard sometimes. But I mean, I'm the same way. I have idolized a number of people over the years, and I've recently gotten to talk to some of those people. Like, for example, Blair Morgan. He was on the show recently. I think.
Yeah, I listened to that one. That was great.
I've gotten really nervous about that. I mean, I've done 90 plus of these shows, and you'd think that I wouldn't get nervous anymore, but I still do almost every time. But especially if it's someone I've been like Blair Morgan, I used to idolize him when I was younger. I was like, I got all nervous before that episode. Same with Doug Henry. Doug Henry was on. I was like, I remember going and watching this dude at Supercross when I was a kid, and now I'm talking to him. I mean, it's over. I'm sitting in front of a computer right now with a microphone in front of my face. Like I'm not even face to face with you, or I wasn't even face to face with him. But I got really nervous about that. But you just gotta do it, and you realize how down to earth people actually are. Like Blair Morgan, I remember I asked him what one of his biggest challenges was in his career, and he didn't even say like paralysis. I'm like, what?
Wow.
But he's like, no, that's not my. I don't even remember what he said now, but he's just so down to earth and so humble. He's like, I won some races and like I got hurt, but now I'm just winning races again, and it's mind blowing. I had this too. I met Travis Pastrana and I got to interview him, and like my hands were sweating and shaking before I was able to go up and walk up to him and talk to him for a minute, and it was so funny because I almost missed my opportunity because he had to move on to this next segment, and they didn't have enough time actually for my interview. I was supposed to have 10 minutes, and either way, he stopped and just looked at me. He's like, "Hey, how are you?" And I was like, "Oh shoot!" And I quick pressed record. I was like, "Can I ask you a question?" And he's like, "Yeah." But he was so normal. It was almost shocking.
And it's easier said than done. I mean, nerves are nerves, and they're gonna take over when you don't want them to sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But If you can conquer that and just be yourself and have a conversation with the athlete manager, whomever, and just, get your foot in the door, but be who you are and not try and, like I said, it's easier said than done. Sometimes you accidentally put a front on, it's just because of nerves and you're panicking, but it's cool when people are able to just relax and have a cool conversation with you, and life goes on, and then that's your first impression of them.
Definitely. Well, I want to ask one more very quick question on Heat 2, and then we're going to shoot through the main event with lightning quick speed. But this one question in Heat 2 is around which athletes you think are doing really well right now with sponsorships. So this is the point where you can do some name dropping. I want to know, if folks are listening right now, who should they be paying attention to and maybe studying out there?
Oh boy, let me think. I gotta kind of think of our roster here. Of course, kind of the GOAT. Durant has always done very, very well. He's got it pretty much mastered. He kind of was on the forefront of the social media thing and was one of the first guys to really gain any traction in the snowmobile industry. And he's stuck with it. He's been constantly posting stuff. He replies. A big thing too is replying even just via comments within your social media posts. When you get to be that big of a name, and you have almost 200,000 followers, you do become a celebrity, even if you don't want to. There's people that are going to idolize you. Not saying that he doesn't want to be. He absolutely loves what he does. He's great at it. But he goes out of the way and he'll reply to comments, and you'll see, ever since we added to be able to like a comment, you'll see he'll reply to something and 25 people like his comment, because you can just tell they're genuinely stoked that Durant went out of his way to reply to this kid's question. And that's not even really sponsorships, that's just personality. But he also is just really up on stuff with his brands. He really follows through with everything he does with Polaris and with us. He does a lot of live videos. Live videos go a long way. We sent him a new helmet a while back, and one of his new carbon signature series. He did a live video about it. Didn't ask him to do it, just did it. Just because he knows, he's like, hey, they've been around, they've been backing me for, 10 years now? Or he's like, I'm going to give back to them, but I'm just going to do it out of the kindness of my heart. And that's super cool to see when somebody does something big like that gets a lot of interactions, and it's just random. There's no, they weren't forced to do it. They didn't have to. They just wanted to give back to the brand that's been helping them. And then Kote Borchers has been killing it lately. He's an absolute OG of the sport. It was funny talking about the nerves thing. He was actually one of the few guys when I first met him was kind of, giddy and a little nervous. I grew up watching all the Floodnex films and loved his segments. Everything from the soundtrack to his riding style. And now it's me giving him a hard time when he wants stuff. Yeah, he's been really, really on top of our outerwear stuff. This outerwear is all new to us. This will be our second year for 2019, and he's been giving us great feedback, giving great plugs on social media. So actually, what I really love seeing is when we make a post about it on our personal account, he'll go and comment on that saying something about, this stuff kicks butt, but a little more in depth than that.
Yeah.
But he's paying attention to what we're posting about the product as well as he's posting about it. And his stories, everything. And I don't really want to make it all based around social media, but that's really kind of where we're at this day and age.
Right, right.
But even off social media, you have a conversation with him. He works at a snowmobile dealership as a day job, and he's a dealer there. He's a salesman there, so he's pushing our product out the door still. And that's cool because he has a ton of hands-on experience with it. So you walk in and Kote Borchers is your salesman, and you're like, oh, this guy's not going to feed me BS. He's been riding this stuff for the last 2-3 years. So that's awesome to see. Also to know that he's pushing in on a sales level also. He just goes above and beyond in many ways. So all of our guys do. I don't want to not mention them. They all kick butt. Our outerwear team's awesome, and the follow through is the number one thing. Their follow through has been pretty dang good.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to comment on around Chris Brandt specifically is he does a lot of, I guess, technical support videos as well.
Right.
And that's pretty cool. I mean, I know when I was looking for my last sled, I ended up going with Arctic Cat because I just wanted a 4-stroke turbo, 800-pound snowmobile. But I remember watching a lot of, because I was big on Polaris too, and I watched a lot of the videos and of Chris, like Chris going through and saying, hey, here's how you change a belt, or here's how you take off the hood. He does a bunch of cool things like that, and you can tell how really passionate he is and knowledgeable he is of the product, which is what you were mentioning. And actually, just while we were talking, when you were talking about Chris, I pulled up his social media too and just scrolled through to see any of his recent posts, and he had one where he's at a Polaris dealership, on the assembly line, so you can see the sleds in the background getting assembled. And that's pretty cool. That he's able to go there and actually like get into the nitty gritty. Especially for me, I've been in manufacturing for like 10 years, and in my day job, so like I can really appreciate what it takes to put something together. So the fact that he's there and a part of it is pretty cool.
Actually, thanks for hitting on that. If you're out there and you got a decent amount of sponsors and you have a good relationship with them, if you have any access to behind the scenes that they are willing to let you promote, whether it's you're stopping by their headquarters and you got their story going, like, visiting 509 today, people love the behind the scenes. It's cool. I mean, I loved when when Snapchat came out, because I had a lot of athletes on there, big names in the motor industry, right? And it's just another way to see what's going on behind the scenes in their personal life. So when guys come by and they post, they have a 3-minute long story behind the scenes of the 519, and we're all hanging out and they're laughing and having a good time. That's cool. That's cool to see, because your average consumer never gets to see that otherwise. They wouldn't really know how this helmet's packaged up, or how this goggle's made, and it's cool to see when the athletes. You don't ask them. Once again, it's another thing, you don't ask them, and they just do it on their own because they know it's rad also, and everybody's pumped on it. It's just little things like that. Just always go the extra mile if you can.
Definitely. I love it. Well, I want to do a very condensed main event and just really ask one question, and it's around the mindset of the sponsor. So, in your position, you have to make decisions around sponsoring people. We've already talked a little bit about that, but from your standpoint, what makes choosing the right athlete to sponsor difficult, and why is that difficult?
Oh, that's tough. You are right. Historically, sponsorships, you've been, somebody receives a sponsorship from being an incredible athlete, right? Whether you're winning races, you have a riding style like nobody else, you're getting gold medals, whatever it is. So the riding aspect of it, as well as the personality side of it, if you can combine those, if you have both those, and you can continue to show everybody that, hey, you're a cool guy, you're personable, you can walk up and talk to me, but also, hey, I'm going to go throw this heel clicker backflip 20 minutes later at a show. That's really cool. When you got the skills, but you also have the personality back. Like Travis Pastrana, for example, you encountered that.
Yep.
One heck of an athlete, awesome personality. But when you get, like I say, I've seen it all. You get some guys that are incredible athletes, but they couldn't care less about their fans. They're just whatever. This is what I do, or they're cocky about it. That's a big issue I see too, is when people get too cocky about their skill set. I'm kind of off on a tangent now. I kind of forgot where we started.
No, this is good, because what we're talking about is like, why is it hard for you to make a decision around a sponsor, and you're just like, there are different elements of that, right? There's people who are really good at racing or riding, but have a horrible personality. There's people with a fantastic personality that are horrible at racing and riding, like myself. Ha ha ha! Fantastic personality. No, and then there's people that have both, and they are the rock stars of the world. Like Travis Pastrana has both of those things, and it's very evident that he has both, and that's why he's.
And don't get me wrong. And don't get me wrong. There's some absolute rippers out there who they know, like, hey, I'm dropping sponsors, or people are dropping me, but I'm still at this incredible riding level, if not getting better. Maybe, hey, this is eye-opening. Maybe I need to rethink how I'm approaching this, or how I'm acting, or And there's guys that clean their act up and they come back hitting twice as hard, and that's awesome. But, if you can be the full package, that makes it a breeze in a sponsor's eyesight. So it's you just see it all. You just got to be selective. You kind of got to trust your gut too.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just a tough topic because there's a lot of reoccurring ways to look at things when it comes to sponsors. It's kind of a lot of these fall under the same questions. It's just how it is because it's you look into their social media, you look into their personal life, you look into all that, and it kind of reoccurs in all of these topics.
Yeah, definitely. And what I want to point out too is actually going back to something you said earlier, is that there's difficult conversations that you have to have as well. People put a lot of effort into their proposal, and you can't accept everybody, and you have to tell them no, and that can be tough. It's tough to do that, and if people aren't following through on some of their commitments, or you feel like they're missing out on some good opportunities for exposure, you have to tell them, and that can be tough too. So I want people to always remember that the mindset portion of sponsorship is on both sides. That both sides have to do the thinking, and the worrying, and the nerves come on both sides.
Exactly, and don't beat yourself up on it. Don't give up because of something like that. Just just stay motivated and come back. Bigger, better, badder, whatever it is, and just work on it. Don't give up from something like that.
Definitely. Well, at this point, we're going to start wrapping things up at the finish line, and I want to kind of start with this. What's one thing that our listeners need to take away from this conversation? If they forgot everything else, what's the one thing they should remember?
Kind of what I just said there. If you're really chasing a brand hard, you really believe in the brand, but something just isn't connecting with them between you and the brand, just don't give up on it. Don't beat yourself up. Just continue to better yourself, or take notes, or if they said something in there specifically about your application, take that to heart. Don't say, "Oh, they were a jerk about that. I don't really want to be associated with them." Just learn from it. Don't get mad at the brand or whoever you're dealing with. Just work on it and come back and hope for the best, and just keep rolling with the punches. It'll happen eventually if it's meant to be, man.
Definitely. Well, what's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
My personal Instagram gets goofy sometimes. I think that's the word. I have a lot of fun on there. It's kind of I joke, it's behind the scenes of the behind the scenes. And that's at DMC Digital. That's honestly where I'm the most active, as Facebook also, but it's more of a personal Facebook page. Otherwise, 509, you can reach me via email. It's david.mckinney@ride509.com. And that's everything from sponsorships to film discussion to sledding events, whatever. If you just want to hit me up and chat about anything sled related, go for it. But Instagram is kind of my go-to.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat tonight. I mean, we covered a lot of good topics, a lot of good things to do, a lot of things to avoid, a lot of mental sides of the mental side of things from both the sponsor aspect and also from the person making decisions around sponsorship. So I really appreciate all that. But it's time to close things out. So I am going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. I sincerely hope that you are getting value out of this show. If you're not, let me know so I can change things up. We need to make sure that this is adding value for you. Now make sure that you subscribe regardless of whatever podcast player you're using so that you don't miss any of our upcoming shows. We have RJ Anderson coming up next. Super excited about this show. RJ killed it. I can't wait to get it out there. Get it inside of your ears. Bounce it around in that mushy thing that we call your brain. And I want you to absorb the knowledge that RJ delivered. So that's coming up next week. Also, head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. That would be great. Make sure that you're following us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, but Facebook is where we go live. That is where our live episodes sit, and we have had some good ones in the past. We've had Travis Pointer live. We've had Jeff Vanestall. We just recently had Megan Meyer on. We've had Sarah Price. Good stuff. So if you want a little bit more of a personal connection with some of your favorite riders and racers, check that out. To get some insider access to upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook and request to join. A special thanks for this show goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Armor Kote, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. I also want to shout out our other partners, GSP XTV Axles, MBRP Power Sports, HMK USA, Sudboy Traction, and One Stop Performance. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.